Big Z Reviews. The Batman is the newest film about the Batman, Bruce Wayne, and this time, once again, we have a grittier, darker, more realistic version of Batman, and I absolutely loved it.
Fear is a tool. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning.
So leading up to the release of the Batman, I watched all of the main Batman movies, and I really enjoyed watching them again. I was surprised the first two, Batman and Batman Returns. It'd been a long time since I'd watched them, and I really enjoyed them this time around. Especially the 4K transfers look amazing, and I think that it got me really prepared for the Batman. I traveled with my brother almost 2 hours to see it in my nearest IMAX screen, and I'm not getting to reviewing it till now. I actually just watched it again in my home theater. I mean, a theater in my hometown. So I have two different opinions on it, both pretty much the same. But it's such an excellent Batman film. I think you can compare it a lot of what people say what their favorite Batman film is, and I may do ranking later in this video. But for me, this is definitely the best Batman film. I don't know if I'd say it's the best film with Batman in it, but this feels like it was made by Matt Reeves, the director, and he wrote the script. I feel like he is actually a fan of Batman. It's so weird. So many of the other people that made Batman didn't really like it. Except actually, I think Schumacher actually liked it. But I think maybe he really loved the more campy, TV series and movie they did. And there's a lot of references to it, and there's movies that are so bad. But I feel like this, Matt Reeves probably grew up with this character, and he loves all the different comics about Batman. And this one, he is inspired by it. Inspired by Long Halloween and kind of a sequel to Year One, and and that is also there's even mentions of maybe next movie could be Hush, there's bits of that with the reporter and it's maybe the reporter's son that was killed. There's some stuff there that you could definitely do stuff with in sequels. And I think I love Robert Pattinson as the Batman. And I love that, I think it's so interesting that, sometimes people call him the Batman, but I think the Riddler, played by Paul Dano, he is one that calls him the Batman the most. Robert Pattinson calls himself Vengeance. And, so it's kind of it's interesting, but it's a really young Batman, and he has, he's very kind of emo, and he keeps a journal of each night he's protecting the city. But I love that the detective noir style of this film, because that's very much what this character is in the comics. And then, but of course, with the comics, there's so many different versions of him. But that's one of the strongest ones. One of the biggest lines throughout them all is that he is the world's greatest detective. And I feel like none of the other movies did that. And also too, I love that. Even more than that, he is still a hero. I love that the play with this. I'm not going to spoil stuff, but I think he saves more people in this, or is shown saving people more than any other Batman we've seen. He's not just beating up criminals; he's also saving people, and he can also be a hope for Gotham, along with being the Vengeance and the Bat. He's multiple layers of him, and I also love that. You don't see the playboy aspect of Batman yet, of Wayne, because he hasn't taken on that facade yet. And I think you still could do that in future films. I think things happen in the film where I think he realizes the use of the Bruce Wayne persona, out when the Batman can't get it done. And the whole cast of characters is really great. I loved Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman and Jeffrey Wright as Gordon, And Colin Farrell as the Penguin is in a fat suit. I think he's really good. I mean, he doesn't look like him at all. I mean, I think he did. It's really interesting, more of like a more realistic kind of gangster style of the Penguin. And again, Paul Dano is excellent. I almost wish there would have been more Paul Dano on the screen, because a lot of times he's behind the mask. And I kind of like that aspect of it. He's like in a mask like Batman is. But I almost wish there would have been two. I could have said even more of a mystery detective. But the thing is, I think that Matt Reeves, he has a 4-hour cut of this film, and he got down to 3 hours. And they also did even shorter cut, but they tested it and didn't do as well. So I mean, like watching it the first time in IMAX, I did not feel its length at all. Watching it the second time, I felt the length a little bit more, but still, it's a really, I mean, it'd be tough to remove a lot of stuff because there's so much here that it has to do. And it does it all so well. I think I love that noir style, like that the opening scenes where you see the Riddler kill the mayor, and then right after that you see the Batman patrolling on Halloween. And you see Robert Pattinson's voiceover, and voiceovers can be so bad at times. This one is so perfect; it gets you in that mood so well, because he's just like that. The idea that Gotham is a big city and he can't be everywhere at once, but when Gordon puts up that bat signal, all the criminals look at it and second guess, doing a crime. And then you actually get like the scenes of him taking on that gang is just so badass. Like the action is great, but I love like how he steps out of the shadows. How you can like hear his steps like stomping closer and closer, and the suit is great. Like it's still like it's not like super high tech or super fancy, but like I love the look of it, and it's the presence of him. And Robert Pattinson, he's so perfect in this role as a Batman, because there's a different version of the mask, and I think that the previous one, the Dark Knight trilogy, like the mask was it only had like that part of it, and I mean actually one of the only times where I don't think you'd be able to tell who the Batman was, but Robert Pattinson, he has the whole jawline, and he has a great jawline, and there's also too they played with the darkness and how the whites of his eyes, that you can see he tells so much with just a glance. Like when the first time when he the Gordon brings him in on the police scene to investigate the murder, and all the cops are upset, and he's just looking at everything, and he looks at a specific splatter of blood, and then the CSI tech goes oh, I better take a picture of that too. It's so many the moments, it adds up to such a great movie. The atmosphere, everything about it is just so impressive. I think Pattinson, there's so much presence in him when he's on screen, and I love too that they actually gave him the real eye makeup. I mean, every Batman has worn eye makeup, but whenever they take the mask off, they're not wearing it. And when he takes the mask off, he still has the eye makeup on. It's sweaty, and is dripping down, and it's I love that. That is realistic. And even he doesn't have he can't fly. He has a flight suit those guys use that jump and the parachute down the cliff that goes so fast. You have that suit. I kind of like that. It's even more realistic, but it's still Batman, and a lot of that is like that with the character in the comics, and it's just such an interesting take on it, and I can't wait to see what else they'll do with this version of the character. It sucks we're gonna have I don't know how long we'll have to wait. But this movie took 5 years to make. Hopefully the next one won't take that long, but I mean I loved everything about it, and I think that. The only thing I'm not sure is how rewatchable it will be, because I mean the second time around, some of the surprises things that happen, they're gonna happen, but so it's not quite as impactful. But I absolutely loved it, seeing it both times. I really think that you should see it in theaters, especially if you're a Batman fan, or I mean if you're just a fan of good movies. I think there's a lot here. The only thing that it's a 3-hour movie, but it's just such a great movie. I mean. I absolutely loved it. And now for my rankings of the main Batman film, I won't do any of the animated ones or the big ones that went into cinemas. I think for me, I, I think like I said, I have to watch a couple more times to see if the Batman tops the list. But I think for starting out, I'll start out with the top of the list. And number one, I think, is still The Dark Knight. And I mean, the Nolan films, they are such good films. But at the same time, they're almost like techno thrillers. It's like the Bruce Wayne, the Batman, is like kind of a mixture of like James Bond, maybe a little bit of Iron Man, and like a little, and and then mixed with Batman. And I mean, that's great for that. I mean, the one guy, Morgan Freeman, he is his Q, you know, and Alfred is kind of, I don't know if he's Moneypenny or the head woman, but there's M, I think, yeah, but there's just, they're great movies, but they're not great Batman movies, but the Dark Knight is such an amazing film, and watching it again, I love seeing it again. Like, and there's this, it really holds up really well. That's why I think it still tops my list. And that number two would be the Batman, and like I absolutely loved it. And as I said in this review, at number three I put Batman Begins, and I think this is like probably the second best superhero origin movie ever. Like, only topping it would be Spider-Man. It's such a great intro to this version of this character, this ninja James Bond. That there's a couple of like third act problems with it, but I mean, it's a great film. I've always loved it, and I love watching it again this time around. And then at number four, I think I put Batman Returns. Like, that movie, I was really impressed by both of them. And that one had some great villains. They had the great Catwoman and the great Batman. And it's so horny, though. That movie is like so horny. Especially Penguin is so weirdly horny. I always think it's Frank Reynolds. Like, that's like the beginning of the Frank Reynolds character from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in Batman Returns. And then I put I think I put Batman then next. And I mean, again, I like the version of the Joker, and it's interesting. I mean, this is to have like the set pieces, all like the miniatures of Gotham. That's one thing I love, the Gotham in this one, the Batman. But like the other ones, so many other things, they don't feel like Gotham. Like for the Nolan, they just kind of seem like Chicago, But this, then like the miniatures really make, his Gotham in Batman and Batman Returns. And then I put The Dark Knight Rises, and that is just, watch it again this time around. It's still a great movie, but there's just so much happens in it, like way too much. Like, it just keeps going and going, and like there's so many, like the whole like third act is so long, and he has to like, it feels like it's like he has to do two movies in one too. Like, I feel like nowadays, if they would have split it in two, like they do some movies, like maybe we almost would better. But like it has to do so much, and it's just that it makes it a bit of a burden to watch sometimes. So it's funny. I don't know if it. I think is it shorter than this one? I'm not sure how long it actually is, but it feels a lot longer than the Batman. And then after that would be Batman Forever, and it's not good. And I mean, it's so funny that they're trying to like, it's almost like a sequel to the previous one, because like they reference stuff that happened before, even though now it's Val Kilmer. And there's some stuff when Robin comes in and he's doing the karate washerman stuff that is so cringy. And then the cringe continues in Batman and Robin, and that's just a mess, But I think that's my list, and for the Batman, I just absolutely love that. I'd probably give it like a 9.75 out of 10. And if you like my review, you can subscribe to me down below. Thanks.